Hey everybody. Unbelievable times. Unbelievable, unprecedented, incredible. All 20 live hostages out of Gaza in our hands with their families, walking on their own 2 feet, seemingly okay. Okay, let's just believe that they're okay. One of them already got up and went to the funeral of his officer, Daniel Perez, who is one of the hostages that was killed on October 7th, and his body was kidnapped. And it was returned, and he went to the funeral. Matan Engrest, one of Daniel Perez's soldiers. Incredible, incredible, incredible. These people developed such almost like superhuman powers in those 2 years. It is just, there are no words to describe the feeling that we have here in Israel. It's kind of like, I don't know if it's euphoria. I don't know. It's like we weren't able to take a full breath for 2 years, and now we are finally able to take that breath. It's like almost, I don't know if you can call it happiness really, because it's just such a relief. Like you can't deal. Like I keep like, especially in my prayers, I'm like, what do I do now? I'm left with this blessing where it used to take me so long to go through Shmona Esrei with all the names of all the hostages, and just like asking for so many things for them. And also every time I even go through like any bracha, I keep them in mind. And anytime I do anything, and anytime I say Ashrei, where there's one of the psukim is Poteach et yadecha umasbia lechol chai ratzon. I remember when I was a kid, it's like you're saying, Hashem, open your hands and just give us the abundance and anything that we want. And I remember as a high school girl hearing from some speaker that if you say with full intention, serious kavanah, lechol chai ratzon, whatever you want, ratzon is that like whatever you really desire, you will get it through saying this pasuk, poteach et yadecha, you open up your hands and you give us. Every single person, you give what he wants. You give him what he truly wants. And I've had in mind all this time, every single time I say that in Ashrei. It's in every part of, like you say twice a day. You say it in the morning prayer and in the afternoon prayer. I've had that in mind, and it's just incredible. Now I've learned a few things. I learned that people really don't need so much food to survive. They were starved for 2 years and they look okay. They're okay. I mean, why do we need so much bloody food? Here Shabbos is coming again. It's Thursday for a change. And here we are cooking humongous amounts of food. We don't need this food, guys. We need to cut down on the amount of food that we consume. I think we really don't need it. I just cannot believe how these people survive. I just can't believe it. That's number one. Number two, I learned that Hashem can do anything. And that nothing is too great and too amazing and too happy to believe. People should not say, I'm afraid to be happy. I'm afraid to expect anything. I will not be happy until I see them in front of my face. Okay, that's a shame, because you could have been happy for another few days from the moment you heard that they were coming back until they came back. What is the point of not being happy until you see their face? And now you're not going to be happy until you see that they're okay? Well, how long are you going to wait? How about let's assume that they are okay, and then it will happen. Please God. Okay? And even if it's not our happiness that is causing it, which I think it is our happiness, and are expecting Hashem to bring a full Yeshua to these people, like, why not believe it? Why not be happy ahead of time? What are you gaining by not being happy or by being afraid to be happy? Don't be afraid to be happy. Show Hashem that you know that He loves us and that He is giving us a huge, huge salvation. Hoshana Rabbah. That was the day that they came back. Hoshana Rabbah means a huge Yeshua, a huge salvation. And that salvation, and that just knowing that these people can all come back. We didn't hear from some of them. Some of them had not been seen. We just heard that they were alive. There was some intelligence that said that they were alive, but that's all we knew. Nobody else was with them. There were no testimonies. There was nobody who was with them who could say that they were okay. And yet they're okay. They're okay. They say they're okay. So let's believe that they're okay. Well, of course, we can continue to daven for their full healing, emotionally, mentally, but don't imagine that they're not okay. And don't be freaked out about the fact that all these terrorists are being released. That is the price we have to pay. Yes, it is unbearable to think about, and let's not think about it. How's that? Okay? Just like Hashem took care of us up until now, and we are surrounded by many, many horrible nations, many more than 250, 270, 1,000, 2,000. Doesn't matter. We're surrounded by millions of enemies. You know what? Hashem has helped us all throughout this time, and He will continue to help us. All right? So let's just believe that. Okay? Now, this is the beginning of the new reading of the Chumash. We finished up on Simchat Torah, and we are starting a new reading of Bereshit. Now, first of all, I just want to remind everybody that it's very important to remember that what we need to take from, like, this whole holiday season just passed, right? And we have to remember that we can't just start the year and everybody just say, okay, great, a good winter, a healthy winter. That's what everybody's saying. Shana Tova, a good winter. Let's move on. Let's get the kids back to school. Let's get back to routine. No, we don't want the year to be exactly the same as last year, right? We see, especially with the return of the hostages, that we are at the beginning of a humongous, important, special time. We are in a new reality, a new year with a new reality, starting the Chumash over again. It's a new cycle in such a different realm. We're in a different realm. We're on a different level. And we see that Hashem can do anything, and Hashem can bring Mashiach in 2 seconds. It's no big deal, right? If He could do this, if He could bring back 20 live, healthy, considering hostages after 2 years, that some of them we haven't heard from at all. They were in the worst conditions after 2 years, and they're all walking on their own 2 feet, and they all seem to be, they have their limbs intact, their organs are working. If Hashem could do that, He can do anything. He can bring Mashiach, and it will just happen in a blink of an eye, and we'll almost get used to it, okay? So I think what we have to remember is that we're taking from this Chag, from Simchat Torah, and from the whole period, so the whole time period that started in Elul and continued through the inner reflection of Rosh Hashanah and Aseret Yemei Tshuva and the 10 days of Tshuva and Yom Kippur and all the introspection that we did and all the work on ourselves, and then Sukkot and the love and the incredible chesed that we saw from Hashem on the last day, is that we have to realize that we have to take that emunah, we have to take those feelings of being cradled by Hashem, realizing that Hashem is in charge of everything. And it's everything is exact. Look how it just took 2 years, exactly as I was saying last week, 2 years like Yosef. And actually my friend just pointed out to me today that the day that this all happened, Hoshana Rabbah, was actually the day of Yosef's Ushpizin. Yosef, who was in prison, and for those exact 2 years that Hashem decided that he would be in prison, and as soon as those 2 years were over, Hashem brought him a Yeshua, salvation. That was the day of he was the guest in our sukkah on that day when all of this was going down. And we have to take from this whole tkufa, from this whole period of time, the emunah, the very strong emunah that we developed over these months, over these 2 years. We have to realize that it's like we can take a deep breath, we can start smiling again, we can start working on the real work of healing our nation, the rifts within our nation. That's the most important work we can do right now. That's it. We don't need to do anything else except for heal the rifts among our nation, to create unity so that we can all greet Mashiach together, Okay, and as Netivot Shalom says in two things, I'm going to show you two things. First of all, he talks about the last day of Yom Tov, the last day that we experienced just now, and he says that when you this is what we have to take with us for the rest of the entire year. Okay, Simchat Torah and that Shmini Atzeret, that last day, is when Hashem says, I am with you. You and I are going to go through this the rest of the year together. And it's just me and you. And usually, you think like, if it was hard, there's this concept, there's a midrash that says that Hashem wanted the Jewish people to stick with him for another couple of days after all the non-Jewish nations are with God, so to speak, on Sukkot. The last day is only for the Jewish nation, for the Jewish people. And Hashem says, I just want you to stay an extra day because it's hard for me to separate from you. It's hard for me to say goodbye. And you wonder, wait, so if we just have one more day together, why is that going to make it easier to say goodbye? It's going to make it even harder. It's like if you just have one more day with your best friend, why is that going to make it easier to say goodbye? You just realize how much you love them and how much you're going to miss them. So he says that on the last day when you are with Hashem, just you and he, what it shows you is that you are never saying goodbye. You're always going to take Hashem with you wherever you go. So it's a relationship. And just like you never say goodbye to your parents, you're always connected to them. And even though you do travel or you do leave home, you're always in touch. You're always connected. And that has to be the message of all these holidays. Shivti b'veit Hashem. And this is the end of the Tehillim that we kept saying every single day until the last day of Sukkot. Is Shifti b'veit Hashem. This is what David HaMelech is asking. King David is asking for one thing. Shifti b'veit Hashem kol yimei chayai. I just want to sit in the house of Hashem all the days of my life. And how could you ask Hashem to please sit in his house all the days of my life? You can't just sit in shul. You need to make a living. You need to go out. You need to do stuff. You need to get those kids back to school. You need to make dinner. You need to do the laundry. What are you going to do? You can't sit in the Beit Midrash. You can't sit and just study and learn all day. It would be nice. I mean, it was fun on Sukkot, but you have to go back to reality. So, says Netivot Shalom that this is really the idea, is that Shivti b'veit Hashem means that you, in your mind, you need to always be with Hashem. It says if. Obviously, you're going to go around and do your business and do the laundry and make a living and go back to work and send your kids to school and so on. But in the end of the day, you have to realize that your mind is always as if it's sitting and learning and in Hashem's home. And you have to go back to those moments that you were in the sukkah, that you were in Hashem's hands, that you were in Hashem's home, and feeling that you are cradled by Hashem, feeling that love once again, and that you are always going to feel that in your mind as you go about your business. And that's what we have to think about. We're going back to our regular routine, but we can never, ever let ourselves get distracted from the idea that we are in Hashem's home all the time, that Hashem is taking care of us, that we're not in charge of anything. And that's what Breshit is all about. We're starting a new book. And it's interesting because Hashem says, how Hashem talks about the light, let there be light, right? Now, with everything, it doesn't say, it says Hashem said, let there be light. Hashem says, let there be animals, fish, greenery, shrubs, trees, and so on. Everything is more like Hashem commands that thing to come about, and then it comes about. But only with the light, first Hashem says how horrible everything was before him. And he says like this, V'ha'aretz hayta tohu vavohu v'choshech al pnei tehom. Vayomer Elokim yehi or vayehi or. So he says, why? It says before the light that everything was chaotic and everything was dark and everything was horrible. And then Hashem said, vayehi or. That beforehand there was so much darkness. And only afterwards, Hashem had to get rid of the darkness. But how do you get rid of the darkness? By creating light. It's not like Hashem said, okay, let's push away the darkness. Let's get rid of all these bad stuff. Hashem just said, turn on the light. And then everything will fall into place. So it says the Netivot Shalom. Oh, actually, he first brings a kliyakar. He brings up a commentary that says that what is the meaning of chaos, tohu vavohu? He says, shmama. He says it. What is that? He says, kodem bri'at ha'olam. There was shmama, sha'adam tohe umishtomem, tamea v'shimamon. What does that mean? Wondering. A person is wondering, and there is shimamon. There is just emptiness. And a person ends up standing and wondering, what the hell is going on here? And it's interesting. Like, what a bizarre thing for, actually, Rashi says this. Adam tohe umishtomem. When he looks at all this chaos, when he looks at all the distractions, when he looks at the physical world without Hashem, without the perspective of Hashem running everything, a person is just standing and wondering and not understanding what is going on. But then, as soon as Hashem turns on that light and shows that there's a method to the madness, there's a reason for everything, Hashem is running the show, then we can understand, oh, okay, we don't have to worry about this anymore. We don't have to wonder. We don't have to stand here and look at all this emptiness and this darkness and this horrible evil and just like not get it. And you see with these hostages, it was unbelievable that they in the darkness of the captivity that they were in, they found Hashem. Each and every one of them. So many of them said that they were not religious beforehand, that they didn't even believe in God beforehand. They really didn't. And yet, in their captivity, one person said, just this guy, Or Levi, who came back to find that his wife had been killed, but he still had a 2-year-old to come back to from captivity. This was 7 months ago. He said that when he was first in the homes, he was like sort of transferred from home to home of like different terrorist houses. He was able to see the light, like, through the window, and he would look out the light and he would realize that there's a God, and he would talk to God through that window. And then when he was moved down underground, he was still able, there was like a crack in the ceiling, and he was able to see the light, and he would look up at that crack and he would talk to God. He said, I realized there was a God there. Wherever he was, and even when he was pushed down further into a tunnel that had no sunlight whatsoever, he said, he would go into his mind and he would think about God and he would talk to God. And another one, Omer Shem Tov said that also he was not religious before, and these people were not religious, and they were like the leftists, non-religious Tel Avivians, or even not like nothing to do with Judaism, and they somehow all found Hashem. They said Shema Yisrael. They figured out brachot. I just heard somebody saying who came back now, Matan, this amazing boy, said that one of the Hamas terrorists gave him a siddur that they must have found abandoned by a soldier in Gaza, and he started praying 3 times a day. How did he even know to daven 3 times a day? I'm like, what? It's just so crazy, incredible. I can't even tell you. So what am I trying to say is that you find the light. In the darkness, you find the light, and that allows you to survive even the worst of existence. And he says not only that, but why? Why does it tell you that? Why does it tell us what happened before the light? Why does it have to say that beforehand there was darkness and so on? Why doesn't it say that about the trees and the fruit and the fish and the animals? There beforehand there was no animals and now there was. Why do you have to say the opposite? So it's saying that this is the biggest Yetzer Hara that we have. The Yetzer Hara is there. It's just unbelievable, and it's so true. The Yetzer Hara just tries to distract us. The biggest Yetzer Hara is to try and make us confused, irritated, aggravated, distracted, not able to see the light, not able to see Hashem, not able to see the big plan. And this is what the Yetzer Hara always tries to do, and we have to be on guard. We have to be like really realizing that Hagarua, and what happens, and that's what happens when you don't have any spirituality. You get so distracted by the sheker, by the lies that people say, and the hefech mizeh, who yishuv hada'at v'de'ah miyushevet. And the entire world is not worth anything. Like he says this amazing thing. This is a known thing, that the opposite of that distraction and that confusion is standing with Yishuv Hadat, with mindfulness, with an ability to be clear, to have clarity, and just to understand that there is God and there is spirituality and there is light. And this is a well-known concept, that the whole entire world is not worth anything unless you have that 1 hour of Yishuv Hadat, of mindfulness, of calm, of serenity, of understanding, of clarity. And that is really what this whole world is about. We're going to be looking for that clarity, for those moments, for that emunah, for that ability. And Ze Yatzil Oto, as soon as we say Vayehi Or, and this is up to us, we need to now say, let there be light. We have to ask Hashem for the light. And he says this is an amazing thing, that really we know that the light was immediately hidden, that original light of clarity that was so incredible that you could just see from one end of the world to the other. He says a person now, it's up to each and every individual to say Vayehi Or. And as soon as you do say, let there be light, Hashem, I am in the darkness, I am confused, I don't see, I don't understand. Ditza Or, Avinatan's mom. Avinatan had not been heard from in 2 whole years. He was by himself for 2 whole years. 2 whole years. He was the one that was separated from his girlfriend, Noah Argamani, and she was the one who was like released. She was like, how do you say? Saved, really. She was brought out of captivity from Mifta Arnon. There was like an amazing initiative, and it killed somebody. There was a person named Arnon, and they got out. They rescued 4 hostages, and she was one of them. Noah was the girlfriend of Avinatan. And when Ditza's mom, when Ditza, who was the mom of Avinatan, met up with his girlfriend, with Avinatan's girlfriend, after she hadn't heard from him in a year, and she was hoping she would get some information, she got no information from this girlfriend. They were separated right away. The first moment, she also wanted to know, did you hear anything from Avinatan? So it was like the blind leading the blind. It was such darkness. And Ditza Or was just interviewed right before her son came back. And she said there were horrible moments. There were horrible moments when I was arguing with Hashem, when I was angry at Hashem, when I was screaming at Hashem, and I said, this is not fair. I cannot handle this anymore. You need to end this. This is not okay. And she said, in almost like in rebellion or in anger, she said, I did not go into the kitchen almost at all. I didn't cook for 2 years. I didn't clean for 2 years. Nothing. I was like, no, God, I'm not going to do what I'm supposed to do if you're not going to be doing your end of the bargain. You need to bring me my son back. That's what I'm here for. I'm a mother and I want to see my son back. She was bargaining with him and talking to Hashem. But she said, but never once did I all of a sudden say to myself, you know what? Maybe there is no God. Maybe it's all Hamas and Bibi and Trump and all these little players in the game. And maybe there is no God. Not once did she ever say that. And she's religious, but it seems like nobody really said that. Everybody, in the end of the day, understood and realized, and Hashem gave them the strength to understand that He is running the show. And that allowed them to survive. That allowed them to have the kohot, to have the strength to withstand this very, very difficult trial that they were put through. And that is what each and every one of the hostages seems to have found as well. They found their light, and they were able to say to Hashem, and I think they did. They really did. They said, "Let there be light." Vayehi Or, and that's what he says here. Hakadosh Baruch Hu ozer lo umeir lo. As soon as you say, "Yehi Or Hashem, please give me light. I am stuck in darkness. Ha'er afelati, lighten up my darkness." Az vayehi Or. Hashem shines His light and helps them, And it seems like that is really what's going on. So if you find yourself in darkness throughout the entire year, just remember these days, remember how amazing it is that we are Hashem's chosen nation, that Hashem loves us. Hashem has something in store for us, something amazing, something incredible, something completely unbelievable, but it can happen. It can happen in a moment, in a blink of the eye. Halavai, Emir Hashem. Mashiach will come soon. We will see an end to all of our suffering, and we will see the complete healing of the rifts in Am Yisrael and the rifts in our soul, and the scars, the emotional scars that we are holding. But we have to remember to ask Hashem, Vayihi or Hashem, please light up the darkness. Good Shabbos.